Lucky's Redemption, a tale of poverty, crime, and second chances. Chapter 1, The Early Years. Lucky was born into a family of poverty, the sixth child of his parents. He had a twin brother who was not identical to him, but the two were inseparable. The family struggled to make ends meet, and Lucky's parents often had to make difficult choices about which children would attend school. Lucky started school in grade 1, but he had trouble fitting in. He struggled with the lessons and found it hard to make friends. Instead, he spent his time alone, wandering the schoolyard or sitting under a tree. He soon discovered that he could escape school altogether by bunking classes. He would sneak away to a small hut he had built in the bushes outside the school gates. Other students soon took notice of Lucky's absence, and curiosity got the better of them. Lucky was charismatic, and he quickly became the leader of a small group of students who followed him to his hideaway. They would spend hours there, talking, laughing, and playing games. Lucky became known as the boy who could get away with anything, and he relished the attention. But Lucky's behavior soon became a problem for the school authorities. They tried to stop him from bunking classes, but he always found a way to slip away unnoticed. The other students who followed him began to get into trouble, too, and the school's reputation suffered. Despite his troubles, Lucky had a natural talent for mimicry. He could imitate poets and singers with ease, and he would often entertain his classmates with his renditions. But his academic performance suffered, and he could barely read or write by the time he reached grade 4. Lucky's parents were frustrated by their son's behavior and lack of progress in school. They tried to talk to him and discipline him, but he was stubborn and rebellious. They didn't know what to do with him. Lucky's early years were marked by poverty, struggle, and troublesome behavior. But they were also filled with moments of joy and connection with others. His influence on the other students in school was both positive and negative, and it would shape his life in ways he could never have imagined. Chapter 2, The Road to Crime. Lucky's early years were marked by troubles, and things only got worse as he grew older. He left school early and turned to a life of crime, which would eventually lead him to prison. Lucky's talent for mimicry became a tool for his crimes. He could imitate voices and accents, which made it easy for him to trick people. He started small, stealing things from his neighbors' homes, and he was good at it. He felt a rush of excitement every time he got away with something, and he soon became addicted to the thrill of stealing. As Lucky's confidence grew, so did the size of his heists. He would steal livestock, jewelry, and even food from neighboring villages. He would disguise himself as someone from another village, blending in with the locals and stealing whatever he could. His ability to mimic voices and accents helped him to fool people, and he became known as the master thief. The thrill of getting away with it was intoxicating, and Lucky was becoming more and more brazen in his crimes. He enjoyed the rush of adrenaline that came with each theft, and he felt invincible. But he knew that one day he would be caught, and that day came sooner than he expected. Lucky was caught stealing from a wealthy family's home, and the police were called. They found him hiding in a closet with his pockets full of stolen goods. He was arrested and taken to jail, where he spent the next few years of his life. Prison was a harsh reality for Lucky. He realized that he couldn't continue down this path and saw firsthand the consequences of his actions. He saw the effects of his crimes on the families he stole from, and he felt ashamed. He knew that he needed to make a change in his life, but he didn't know how. Lucky spent his time in prison reflecting on his life and his choices. He realized that his talent for mimicry could be used for good, and he started practicing reading and writing. He also began to develop his talent for poetry and singing, honing his skills and using them to bring joy to others. Lucky's road to crime was a dark one, but it was also a path he chose for himself. His talent for mimicry aided him in his crimes, but it was also a tool he could use for good. It was up to him to decide which path he wanted to take. The next chapter would show whether Lucky would turn his life around or continue down the path of darkness. Chapter 3, Caught in the Act. Lucky's life of crime eventually caught up with him, and he was caught in the act of stealing from a wealthy family's home. The consequences of his actions were far-reaching and impacted not only himself, but also his family and community. When Lucky was arrested, his family was devastated. They had already been struggling to make ends meet, and his criminal activities only added to their troubles. The shame and disappointment they felt were immeasurable, and it was a difficult time for everyone. Lucky's parents were heartbroken, as they had hoped that their son would one day turn his life around and become a successful member of the community. His siblings were also affected by the news of his arrest, and they felt a sense of embarrassment and shame. The impact of Lucky's actions on the community was also significant. He had been stealing from his neighbors and neighboring villages, and people were scared. They didn't know who to trust, and it was a dark time for the community. Lucky's actions had caused a sense of distrust and suspicion among the people, and it was difficult to repair the damage that had been done. In prison, Lucky faced many challenges. He was surrounded by hardened criminals, and he knew that he needed to stay strong if he was going to survive. The first few months were the toughest, but he eventually learned to adapt to his surroundings. He focused on his reading and writing, honing his skills, and using them to communicate with his fellow inmates. He also met other inmates who had been in similar situations, and he learned from their experiences. The challenges of prison life were not just limited to the environment. Lucky also had to confront his own demons. He was forced to come to terms with the fact that his actions had hurt not only himself, but also his family and community. He had to face the consequences of his actions and take responsibility for them. However, Lucky was determined to use his time in prison to make a change in his life. Despite the challenges, Lucky remained determined to survive and make a positive change. He focused on his talent for poetry and singing, using it as a way to express his thoughts and emotions. Lucky began to see his time in prison as an opportunity to reflect on his life and make plans for his future. Lucky's determination to survive helped him overcome the challenges of prison life. He knew that he needed to make a change in his life and make amends for his actions. He spent his time in prison reflecting on his life and making plans for his future. He was determined to use his talent for good and make a positive impact on the world. During his time in prison, Lucky also met other inmates who had similar experiences. They shared their stories with each other, and Lucky learned from their experiences. He was inspired by their resilience and determination to turn their lives around. Their stories gave him hope and motivation to continue on his own journey of redemption. Lucky's arrest and time in prison were a turning point in his life. The impact of his actions on his family and community was significant, and it was a difficult time for everyone involved. However, Lucky remained determined to make a change in his life and use his talents for good. His time in prison was challenging, but he was able to overcome the difficulties through his determination to survive and learn from others. Lucky's journey from a life of crime to a new direction was a long and difficult one, but it was one he chose for himself. He learned from his mistakes, and he used his talent for good, becoming an inspiration to others and showing them that it is never too late to make a change in life. Chapter 4: A New Direction. After serving his time in prison, Lucky was released and returned to his village. He felt a sense of dread, knowing that he was now a known thief and that it would be challenging to find work and earn the respect of his community. He was determined to turn his life around, but he didn't know where to start. The first few weeks were tough, as people avoided him and refused to hire him for any job. He felt like he was still in prison, trapped by his past and unable to move forward. He knew he had to do something to change his situation, but he didn't know how. One day, as he was walking through the village, he bumped into an old man he had never met before. The man was friendly and struck up a conversation with Lucky. He asked him about his past and listened intently as Lucky shared his story. The man was empathetic and understood the struggles Lucky was facing. The man introduced himself as Mr. Kofi, a successful businessman in the village. He offered to mentor Lucky and help him turn his life around. Lucky was skeptical at first, but he felt that he had nothing to lose. Over the next few weeks, Mr. Kofi taught Lucky about business and entrepreneurship. He showed him how to start small and build his reputation as a hardworking and trustworthy person. Mr. Kofi gave Lucky a job in his store, where he worked as a sales assistant. He taught Lucky how to interact with customers and how to manage the store's inventory. Slowly but surely, Lucky started to turn his life around. He took Mr. Kofi's advice to heart and worked hard every day. He showed up early to work, stayed late, and was always willing to help out. Customers began to notice his hard work and dedication, and they started to trust him. As Lucky's reputation grew, he began to earn more money and gain the respect of his community. He no longer felt like a prisoner, but like a free man who had a purpose in life. He was grateful for Mr. Kofi's mentorship and the opportunity to start over. Lucky's success didn't happen overnight, but he was determined to change his life. He knew that he had made mistakes in the past, but he was willing to work hard to make up for them. He was grateful for the second chance he had been given, and he was determined to make the most of it. Lucky's journey from a life of crime to a successful businessman was not easy. He faced many challenges along the way, including the stigma of being a known thief and the difficulty of finding work. However, he was determined to turn his life around and was fortunate enough to meet Mr. Kofi, who gave him the mentorship and guidance he needed. With hard work and dedication, Lucky was able to start small and build his reputation as a trustworthy person, ultimately earning the respect of his community and finding success. Chapter 5: Overcoming Challenges. Lucky had turned his life around and was now on a new path, but he knew that it was not going to be easy. He had to earn back the trust of his community and confront the mistakes he had made in the past. He was determined to overcome the challenges that lay ahead. The first challenge was to earn back the trust of his family. He had caused them a lot of pain and embarrassment in the past, and it was not going to be easy to regain their trust. Lucky knew that he had to show them that he had changed, that he was a different person now. He started by apologizing to them and asking for their forgiveness. He promised them that he would do everything he could to make things right. The next challenge was to earn back the trust of his community. Everyone knew about his past, and it was not going to be easy to convince them that he had changed. Lucky knew that he had to do something to prove himself. He started by volunteering at the local community center, helping with various projects and initiatives. He also started attending church regularly, and this helped him to connect with the people in his community. Confronting his past mistakes was not easy, but Lucky knew that it was something he had to do. He started by reaching out to the people he had wronged in the past. He apologized to them and offered to make things right. He paid back the money he had stolen from his neighbors and even helped some of them with their own problems. Overcoming the temptation to return to a life of crime was perhaps the biggest challenge of all. Lucky knew that he could not afford to let his guard down. He had to stay away from old habits and old friends. He had to find new interests and hobbies to occupy his time. Lucky started playing football with the local team and even helped coach the younger players. He found that he enjoyed working with kids and even started tutoring some of them. The support of his mentor was also crucial in helping Lucky to overcome his challenges. His mentor helped him to stay focused and encouraged him to keep moving forward. He gave him the advice he needed to make good decisions and stay out of trouble. The most important lesson that Lucky learned during this journey was the importance of forgiveness and second chances. He realized that everyone makes mistakes and that it was possible to make amends and start over. He found that people were willing to give him a second chance, and he was determined to make the most of it. In the end, Lucky was able to overcome the challenges that lay ahead. He earned back the trust of his family and community, confronted his past mistakes, and overcame the temptation to return to a life of crime. He found a new direction in life and was determined to make the most of it. Lucky realized that it was never too late to turn his life around, and that with hard work and determination, anything was possible. Chapter 6: Giving Back. Lucky had come a long way from his days of stealing and gambling. He had worked hard to earn back the trust of his community and was now ready to give back in any way he could. He had a burning desire to make a positive impact and help others who were struggling, especially young people at risk of falling into a life of crime. Lucky started by volunteering at the local community center, where he helped with youth programs and mentored troubled teens. He found that he had a natural ability to connect with young people and could relate to their struggles. His own experiences had given him a unique perspective, and he was able to offer guidance and support in a way that resonated with them. Lucky soon realized that there was a real need for more support for at-risk youth in his community. Many young people were struggling with poverty, lack of education, and limited opportunities. They were vulnerable to the same temptations that had led him down a dangerous path. Lucky knew that he had to do something to help. He started a community organization called Hope for Tomorrow, which was focused on providing support and resources to youth at risk of falling into crime. The organization offered after-school programs, mentorship, job training, and other resources to help young people build positive futures for themselves. Lucky was determined to make a difference in the lives of these young people and give them the tools they needed to succeed. The organization was an immediate success, and Lucky's reputation as a positive force in the community grew. He was invited to speak at local schools and community events, where he shared his story of redemption and inspired others to believe that they could overcome their challenges and achieve their dreams. His message of hope and second chances resonated with many, and he became a role model for young people in his community. As the organization grew, Lucky began to receive support from other members of the community. Businesses donated resources, volunteers offered their time, and local leaders lent their support. It became clear that Lucky's efforts were making a real difference in the lives of young people in the community, and he was determined to keep building on that success. Lucky's work with Hope for Tomorrow became the focus of his life, and he poured all of his energy and passion into the organization. He was grateful for the second chance that he had been given and was determined to use it to make a positive impact in the world. Looking back on his journey, Lucky realized that it was his own struggles and challenges that had led him to this point. Without his own experiences, he would never have been able to connect with the young people he was helping, and he would never have had the determination to keep pushing forward in the face of adversity. He was grateful for the lessons he had learned and for the opportunity to use those lessons to help others. As he worked to build a brighter future for the young people in his community, Lucky knew that he was making a real difference in the world. He had overcome his past and had found a new direction in life, one that was focused on giving back and making a positive impact. He was living proof that no matter how difficult the journey, it was always possible to find hope and redemption. Chapter 7: The Future Ahead. As Lucky reflects on his journey, he can't help but feel grateful for how far he has come. He started as a troubled boy from a poverty-stricken family, turned to a life of crime, and ended up in prison. But he didn't let his past define him. Instead, he used it as motivation to make a positive impact on his community. Looking ahead, Lucky has set new goals and aspirations for himself. He wants to continue to grow his community organization, helping more youth at risk of falling into crime. He also plans to expand his efforts into other areas of need in his community, such as education and healthcare. One of the most important lessons Lucky has learned is the value of gratitude. He knows firsthand the struggles of poverty and the harsh realities of prison life. but he has also experienced the kindness and generosity of others, which has given him a renewed appreciation for life's blessings. He is grateful for the second chance he was given and is determined to make the most of it. To readers who may be facing their own struggles, Lucky has a message of hope. He wants them to know that no matter how difficult their circumstances may seem, they have the potential to overcome them. He encourages them to never give up on themselves and to seek out the help and support they need to succeed. Lucky's story is a reminder of the power of one person to make a difference in the lives of many. He started small, but his dedication and hard work have inspired others to join him in his efforts to build a better community. He knows that change won't happen overnight, but he is committed to working towards a brighter future for himself and his community. In conclusion, Lucky's journey has been a remarkable one. He has overcome immense challenges and has emerged as a role model for others. His story serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of hope and determination. As he looks ahead to the future, he is optimistic about the possibilities that lie ahead and is committed to making a positive impact wherever he can.